Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Odyssey, where a new era begins. I'm Tony Rodriguez, and my co-host,
Nikita Simzak.
and we're here with Arcturus Ra this week. And we're going to unpack a lot of things. So we've done a few channelers recently, which was an experience for me. It was new to me, but I am very familiar with Arcturus Ra and your work and your technologies and your theories. And we bounce science off each other quite a bit. So moving to Sedona, you're a local celebrity, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes.
And always inspired for new beings that come to Sedona. You came, So it's let's see where this matrix takes us.
Exactly.
I'm having such a flashback. The very first day that I came to Sedona at Canyon Rose is when I met you. That was last March. So this is a full circle experience. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
I know. I literally just realized that it was last March that I was at that house and I met you there.
So for the people watching, I want to start first with your name, Arcturus Ra. This is not on your birth certificate.
Yeah.
So how did you arrive at this?
That is like a cosmic birth certificate, as in B, Earth certificate. Yes, sometimes people, and sorry I have to break a few mythological star nation bubbles. You are representing the star nation where you have your most planets in your astrology chart. That can be read. If you have a professional astrologer, go into extra objects, and then you'll see where your planets are. And some have them in Lyra, some are in the Vega system. That's usually who you represent. And what was so kind of mind-blowing to me, because you still have the monkey mind, the rational, self-fulfilling prophecy, you Ra, the sun god, who doesn't want to be those entities representing.
I was going to make my name Ra, but it was taken.
Well, it's a collective. I always say this Ra means I'm part of a collective that represents that social memory complex. So I tell people this: I'm not the sun god. Same thing as you have a Gmail account that doesn't make you Google. You are with the Google collective. So Arcturus, as in, there was a Syrian planetary energy that woke me up to the fact that I'm Arcturian. So I had to realize that, and later on to research, I found out, I have 4 planets in Arcturus. North Node, I'm Arcturian. I'm representing the Arcturian Council.
That's where that came from. So there are other people that have their name Ra.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually common.
Yes.
In the community.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that was some kind of group or some kind of, what do you call it, a Discord channel that everybody went in and they learned and said, I'm changing my name to Ra, but you did it through the astrological means and research into your own.
And research and psychic input.
I see.
When I've developed my first pendant, I call it Rainbow Ascension, because the ascension is all the entire spectrum of this plane here should be represented as a bridge on the way up. So I thought Rainbow Ascension. Interestingly, when I watched Star Wars, I saw the Rebel Alliance, the Ra. So this gave echoes to me that what is this? And when I read the Law of One, the Ra material, I realized that what I think Carla Ruckert channels is a social memory complex. So it's of like a cloud server that represents the Ra, and that's us.
It seems like a lot of channelers, even though they go into one person that they're talking to, are coming from a larger mind complex.
Yes, absolutely.
So it seems like that's common.
Yeah, that's where these server cloud systems or monadic soul systems come from. The same thing as we build our internet here. Well, you call it the intranet or the galactic net is built in the same way. There are solar logos, there are cloud servers, there are soul monadic servers, there are soul groups that make entities. Oversoul.
A lot of different names.
But to bring also break another mythological bubble is when somebody says they're Isis, they're not. I'll tell you why. Because Isis was actually probably 20 feet tall and represented a cloud server of 20,000 souls combined in one humanoid being walking the earth. So you can imagine the magical power she had. we don't have the capacity to embody that yet.
So you're giving me a lot here. I want to slow down, kind of take.
Okay.
You're an inventor,
Yes.
and you study photonics.
Yes.
And how did you? So I gather that you get inspiration, like you said, psychically. So you're getting moments of inspiration for the technology, your pendant.
Yeah.
You've made shoes. You make little stickers you've given me that are amazing. How do you get inspired to this? Or did you get trained? Like, give me your background on your inventions.
So as a child, I always was interested in how do things work. How does a locomotive function? Why does the piston move when steam accelerates and contracts in a system? So my mother got me little books in Europe. They were called What is What. In these books, individually broke science down. Cosmology, astrology, steam engines, everything. Like I had a whole array of, you can say, Reader's Digest of an encyclopedia of the functionality of everything and accomplishments of the human race. And that was part of a program design, I guess, as a starseed hybrid to educate myself prior to what's coming to me. It's kind of like, I call it angelic reverse engineering. Like, figure out who you were before you came here. You got to remember those pieces, but you need to learn whatever has been learned on this planet on a global scale. And this was outside the school. It was me teaching myself, putting things in curriculums together that teachers would never have.
I want to dive into many of your inventions, but just so people kind of understand the essence of who you are, because you're talking about being guided by these angelic beings. For someone who, because both Arcturians and Ra, they're different collective souls. So if you could even give, like, someone who's never heard of Arcturian or the Law of One, Ra, one story from each of them that would capture who this collective of beings are, so that people can kind of understand your essence.
So Ra represents the sun and the light. And when the sun sets, that's Seth. That's the darkness. And Ra is the consciousness and the light and the atonement towards the sun. And that is what the original Egyptian, we call Egyptian culture, which I think is of extraterrestrial origin, studied, is to how can I make this avatar resonate to the highest potential of the sun, atoning to creative, to source, to what you call God, to what is the indescribable, unfathomable, infinite. And that is what Ra represents. As in also Ra, it's a sound that represents light. And so hence the word Ra, meaning actually the purity and the existence of what you are. As they say, I am that I am in Egypt. This is the light that you are. You are of the light. You're a representation. You are a spark of that. So that's what Ra is for. Arcturian is basically the planetary signature to activate consciousness. And the mission that Arcturus Ra presents, as in this avatar, is from darkness to light. From unconscious to conscious. From less synaptical flow to more synapses and neurons firing, so you understand who you are and why you exist on this planet. Next.
That brings a lot of clarity. I mean,
yeah, I have these packets. Like, ask me stuff. I have these like tapes sitting there.
Well, they're speaking to, I mean, a lot of your inventions talk about light, like protons, how to bring more light into your body. So it makes sense why people call on to you, Ra. Every time Ra is spoken to you and through you, it allows you to attune more to the light, hence these incredible inventions.
So that's how things are also clear up. When light is turned on and when you have the space lit, you can see what's actually going on. And that is what we're coming out of, that darkness where things were unseen, like the age of Pisces is the age of belief. And belief means you have to assume. And to assume, it's funny, somebody said that to assume makes an ass out of you and me. It's because you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
You're clueless. Assuming is not psychic. or you're a remote viewer. Don't assume. Either you know or you don't.
Assuming is analytics.
Yeah,
And leave
yeah,
that
it's
for
analytics. We don't know. But the power is in the knowledge. And the age of Aquarius not only means, this is the age of the Aquarius and you're singing the song. The prime directive for the Aquarian, which is what I am by astrology, is I know. And to know is the power. When you now know where corruption is and you know where divinity is, it's like you're looking at people's gardens, and we are looked at in truth and in the light now. And so I got this from my German grandmother. Her garden, the neighbors would see that the strawberries would bloom and blossom. Grapes, peaches, cherries would grow on the tree. Asparagus from the ground, potatoes, it was harvested from there. And a whole collective of our family ate from that and grew up on that without problems, without pesticide, without artificial fertilizer, natural grounds. So if you observe that in truth, you can know now that you can not unknow this. So once you know something, you can't unknow it. You can deny. But once you've seen, you have witnessed. And then you have a responsibility to this planet once you have witnessed what's actually going on.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with what you have witnessed?
Wow. That makes sense, your responsibility. I was curious about that. There's a lot of people who are on this path of like really clearing the channel when it comes to health and wanting to be pure in their bodies. And then maybe they don't feel like they have access to their spiritual gifts. And then there's other people. I've been so confused on this. I'd love for you to touch on it because I feel like there's other people that are drinking Mountain Dew and they have this ability to channel. It's a gift that has come through. And then I hear from you, who you grew up with this natural, organic core foundation of who you are, this gnosis. What are your thoughts around that of like physical health and spiritual gifts?
Well, I'm getting now from my Arcturian brothers and sisters, it's imperative to heal the vessel on all levels possible because it makes contact clearer. Parasites impede in contact. And a friend of mine named Tyler said he had a vision, which kind of was like a puzzle piece that I needed. He was on a vision quest and he's flying through the astral realm, fourth dimension, and he saw these politicians infested with parasites running them. That clarified that why is it our society is parasitic? We're mimicking the collective that is in us. So with money, have you ever seen a billionaire come out and say, oh, you need 20 million here, build your project? It's not happening because we're hoarding. We're hoarding energy that we're ultimately not using. That's parasitic. And what does that do? It kills the natural organism. So our entire energy distribution system on the planet is not scarcity of anything. Earth produces on and on and on and on. So we're also not overpopulated. That's a myth. We're actually, if you will, underpopulated. Drive through the Americas. When we go to events like Contact in the Desert, I drive for like hundreds of miles where there's nothing. And they say that we're overpopulated. Where? There's so much space here where things can be done or set up in a right way that we have to get out of these illusions. Even our mapping system. The world map is incorrect. That Africa is made smaller than Russia. It's by measurement. You can read from the equator. It's so off. We have to correct a lot of things. This is a point of view that was designed by the oppressors, hence the parasitic life forms, to show you we are the colonizers, oppressors, and we run the show. And this is how this can go all the way back to Archon entities. It's parasitic. And it's finite, and it's an illusion, and we're learning now to wake up from that.
So, okay. Hold on. I want to unpack a lot of this.
Yeah.
So, I've spoken with you.
Yeah,
We, went out to dinner, but for somebody watching that doesn't know half of the terminology, I kind of want to unpack that.
Yeah.
First, I want to start that when I was young, I was very curious too. And I thought everybody had curiosity to see how things work, but really it's a rare thing. And curiosity is what led you to understand everything that you're telling us about. When you talk about parasitic energies or parasitic behaviors in society that are affecting us all, because this comes back to some of the questions we talked about before we came on the air. When did you first start waking up to that? And I don't want to ask the big question, what are you doing about it? But like, when did you wake up to that frame of mind that society is basically got parasitic energy?
Well, I saw that in school. I'm 16, high school, and the kids that have pocket money from parents that make more than the average, and they could buy the sweets. We have these little kiosks where, like, a little booth where the vendors would have, like, sweets and stuff or breakfast that people would buy. Germany wasn't that, America franchised at that time, early 80s. And I saw those kids who would stuff themselves with everything and would not share anything, but they would have overflow. So I looked at, why is it that this person here has so much and comes home and has their pockets full? And so I'm not... call it the sandbox analogy. I'm sitting in the sandbox and sharing my toys with the kids so everybody would be happy. And then I was told, you can't do that. You cannot hand out stuff that mommy buys with her hard-earned money. And there was the rich kid with the biggest toy and the best toy, and there you can't touch, you can marvel, but nobody touch. And I'm like, this is not, the energy felt off. I'm like, this doesn't happen. So at my birthdays, when I was like 10, I made sure everybody wins a prize. There's no loser. The prize is won when you participate in the game. Where I got that from, no idea. So then I found a story of a native story, which we have to get back to, when the fishermen come back with more fish than the village needs. A special person is assigned, that's tribal rights, and gets the overflow of fish to not hoard. And you go to the neighboring village and you bring your fish there so that everybody has. And now look at billionaires. They're not doing that quite. Even crypto billionaires. They bring home, 200 billion fish, and they hoard it and they put it all in real estate and it's all controlled. Why not buy 20,000 acres in Peru and save the rainforest? Why doesn't that make click in our mind when I see that missing? And on, and that's karma. You have the money, you have the overflow. It doesn't cost you a thing to cough up a little bit. And in the ancient days, the pharaoh had to share at the bazaar with the poor the riches. Like you have to give, you're forced to give, and it doesn't cost you anything. Look at all of those people that own the railroad system and everything. Where's the sharing?
So we're getting into quasi-politics, but you did remind me of the time in my youth when Kenny Sacklow had all of the Star Wars figures and I only had Obi-Wan. And I learned the same lesson. It was the same lesson, and it's like, I'm gonna go have a cry. But there's a thing among children about sharing. That you have, there's this automatic thing that we do, and we've incarnated into a money system where energy is traded, time and energy, everything is traded by this liquid asset. I don't necessarily feel that it's all evil. I feel that it's a obstacle course that we volunteered to incarnate.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's all evil. It's like balance the charge distribution on the planet.
You're bringing a complex issue to simplicity, where it's like, when we look at money and energy distribution, to kind of look at it in this realm of parasitic energy. It's neutral, it's neither bad nor good, but it sounds like, hey, one way to know that something is parasitic is to recognize separation. And if there's something that's like messing with the flow of the energy, it's parasitic, and we can bring neutrality to that. So maybe
the current system enables parasitic behavior.
Yes.
That's what we're seeing with the Doge report, that we've been parasited. The United States as a whole has been greatly parasited by entities that are just taking the money out and they're printing more and devaluing it all. Like, we're seeing this is playing out in real time around us. This is nowhere near I wanted to go with him.
Yeah, we can we'll
come back.
Yeah, we'll curve it and come back. But all I want to say is, not to go too deep into politics, is when we have a holy circuit board that is Earth, we are here by soul lesson to learn to rewire the circuitry correctly so the energy can be distributed so everybody has. And it's not that hard. So you said, what are you going to do about it? So let's go back to my photonic energy. Of course, we will require exchange. I said the universe is based on exchange. Planets move in elliptical, coming and going. That exchange, that energy flow is balanced. We want to go there. So of course, we take money for our services and things that we do so we can build further out what we want to teach to the people. And if we all chip together, that helps. And I knew that when we were a group of teenagers, and I know we wanted to buy this solar Zeppelin, and we were like 12 people. Everybody had like a Dutch mark. We chipped in, and then everybody could buy a Zeppelin. And everybody in the group, we kind of had enough like pocket change, so everybody had a toy to play with. So we can do that without suffering, and everybody can then explore other endeavors with that.
So I want to go back to some of your inventions, because we only scratched the surface on the ones I mentioned.
Yeah.
So based on photonic science,
Yes,
that is your specialty.
yes.
Could you explain us a little bit of the basics of it?
Okay, I've had a mentor named Heinz who has passed, who taught me how to infuse photons into storage mediums. Very simple. Hold a crystal into the sun, it'll store sunlight. Even if you want to put it back into the cave, there are isotopes, as in little fields, that store photons, and they will emanate photons. That can be measured with a camera called a biophotonic emission camera. Very expensive, because this, you have to have like, I don't know, triple, double, blindfold room, like several rooms within rooms that no light, no photons can come in.
Because the larger waves penetrate.
Yeah. So then you put a rose in there, and you turn on that camera, and then you see a blue, and this is not a coronal discharge, it's not electric. At least at what Tesla has found out with the Tesla camera. This is a coronal field of photons emanating from life force, and we call these photons also bions, biologically emitted photons.
Life force, so cellular.
Yes.
It's like cell division, or just cellular activity.
Cellular activity.
Letting go of photons.
Yeah, basically. Okay. That happens. Have you ever seen plankton water glow at night? When they plunge in the water, it glows. That bioluminescence is based on photons. Okay. It's in the visual spectrum. That's why you see it. You see an octopus or a jellyfish by night. They almost look like these galactic dancing lights in the jellyfish. This is biophotonic activation through cellular energy. So I work in a higher light spectrum, where I've managed to build a photon reactor that captures photons from the vacuum, brings it in to the vacuum, like I have a vacuum tube where I'm going from another vacuum into another vacuum, and projects it out forward. And when I use crystal sand, which is nanoquartz, very fine, that's the storage medium for my technology. So you put that sand into a metal containment, you have photonic acceleration. That's how photons actually are motivated to move. If you take a bunch of crystals and you put a metal plate over it, the photons go where the metal is. That's the attractor somehow. And that's the baseline for all my technology, is based on this photonic generation process.
Interesting. I'm wondering how, if you charged barium titanate and then mixed it in with some magnetite, nanomagnetite, how that would react and how measurable it is. But we'll talk about that later off camera.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
what kind of effects do you get when you do this?
So
what kind of things can you? So that's
I can produce. Yeah,
great. But what kind of things does it do?
Okay, so one thing is side effect is fuel savings. The liquid structure of the atomic hydrolysis of the fuel within the motor changes and harmonizes, and your motor has more to work with, because combustion is based on chaotic energies. We have to see a lot of energies that we have invented are based on finite technology. So how do I amplify that, make that better? Well, I'm aligning the carbon molecules, and then where the pistons fire, you have more aligned. Because a motor needs to synchronize. Not everything fires in synchronicity. The more you synchronize that, the less fuel is actually needed. And I can do that with bees will return to beehives if I put a device in a beehive, because I'm harmonizing the natural energy field in and around the beehive. I've built a box which I called a scalar fractal capacitor, which means I'm basically scaling fractal capacitance of the sun and bringing it back out. I'm mimicking basically the King's Chamber, the Niagara Falls, the canyons of Sedona, the beaches of Hawaii. All of those holy places have high emanation of photons, magnetic alignment, and negative ions. And when that takes place, grass grows exponentially. So I can take a box of my devices, which is a home unit that I've built, and you put it in the backyard, and then 2 to 3 weeks, the grass is going to be 3 times the size of natural grass.
I'm just appreciating your examples, because I would have thought you would have jumped straight to the human body, but it's like remembering that every single thing on Earth is powered by the sun, even our fuel process. And so are most of your inventions for the Earth? Are there things that you create for the body? I think a lot of times we separate ourselves as humans from the rest of Mother Nature and the planet. I'm curious how this replicates itself in the human body and what you have found.
So basically the Russian scientists, and there were several, and too many to name, they all have found out or are saying, and sometimes science gets stuck in not building, they're just saying, oh, this happened. So they figured out that when light is quantum folded 15 times, that means 10 to the 15th, the RNA begins to repair itself without supplement or substance, just with what cellular memory and whatever matter you have, the body has enough and goes into repair mode. And they're like, wow, everything under it, it doesn't quite do it. So you have to be thinking 15-dimensional light is clean enough to inspire your cell membrane to go, oh, okay, I have to repair this here. There are leaks and holes and gaps and whatever, and you begin to repair yourself.
15 times smaller.
Condensed.
Like folding.
Folding, not smaller, as in, imagine one sun beam. Now, stack that 15 times into a focal beam.
Okay. So dense. So
Yeah, dense.
So a thick, a bright light.
Yeah, compacted. Yeah.
Hey, it's hard to conceptualize.
You know,
It's like
Light.
quantum
Light
folding.
is
It's like
the
you're going to be on top, and that beam hits you.
I'm in an interview and I'm actually on the drawing board. So it's
Yeah,
great. I'm learning here too.
But yeah, I'm not in the interview. I'm seeing visually what I'm explaining to you.
Okay, so take it to the next level. Where do you see your technology in 5 years?
Yeah, big property and a wellness sanctuary for contact and full body healing and activation.
So, and this opens the door for a whole nother discussion that we had earlier about ET contact. You were mentioning that there are, like here in Sedona,
Yes.
there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of spiritual activity. There's a lot of extraterrestrial. There's a lot of craft. You'll hear about it all the time. I came here a few years ago and people told me about all the sightings, and especially what I do and as a SSP witness, I hear stories all day. People send me emails. I hear it often. And so I just kind of shrugged it off. But after living here, there is a great deal of activity. There's a great deal of activity. There is a great deal of things that fly over my house that are not airplanes or satellites or something.
You just sit in your backyard and watch.
Often, every night, almost every
Yeah,
night.
you can sit and just watch.
That being said, you wanted to touch on some of the things like ETs that can't be seen, slightly phased out of our dimensionality,
Yeah,
if I'm saying it right.
yeah. That again also has to do with photons. Let's go to the Bible.
So happy I asked.
The Bible talks about the cities of light, that people that are unlit cannot not enter. Means that at some point I already have the capacity. I could create 23-dimensionally charged crystalline concrete and build a dome out of it. That'll be so charged that if you have impurities, you'll probably be on a diet for at least 3 months before you can even live in that house, because it's frequentially so high and so lit. So with ETs is the problem why some craft we can already see. You know, if people don't see them, then I tell them open your eyes. But some are dimensionally at a level where you have to be at a level of consciousness to meet them. And to them, this here is like molasses. So that's why it can be irritating when you meet certain ETs, because we have to reload our consciousness.
So that's actually the term of a new D, another 4D, 5D. That's actually the term, is the level that they're resonating.
Yeah, they're resonant. Like, imagine you like here, like, and they're like, oh, but this is so high that it's gonna be like rupturous to you. Like, you see in DC Comics, The Flash, that he can resonate through a wall, but if you would do that to you, you could die, because it dismantles the solidity of how your electrons and atomic structures, the entire spin gets upset. So that's a game of frequency. I had a vision where I was up on airport and I saw a golden city above Sedona. And I'm like, what did I just see? Like towers, gateways, and they're here, but they're also not.
Which dimension are they in?
I think it's higher than 5D. We say 5D as if, there's one dimension hop. I think this is very, very complex dimensions. As science is now finding out that your brain needs a 12-dimensional computation process to fathom 3D. I mean, I would say there's a reason why amoebas don't build bridges.
Yeah.
We have to go step by step to understand the other dimensions and learn to phase in with our brain. That's what you do with remote viewing. There's I call it, I love it when Dan Winter says phase conjugation. You have to create a phase conjugation, meaning like a resonance that's close to source code gets you metaphysical powers. And the more you can hold it, the more skill you will have honing that in and seeing things that people can't see. And we're like, we're in a, like we said, parasitic society. Funny joke, or somebody once said, it's like, well, if this is your store and this is the health food section, what's the rest of that we're eating?
Yeah.
And people go, I never thought about that. Yeah, so with all the processed stuff we're eating, we literally ate ourselves into unconsciousness. There are fairy tales about, I don't know if anybody knows that Chihiro's Great Adventure animation, or further back Grimm's, where they go and they say, don't eat there in that realm. And they begin eating and they forget who they are. They turn to pigs and all they do is eat, and they forgot the realm they're from. That's kind of what happened to us in the fall.
It was a warning.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a warning.
Reminded of even like Adam and Eve and the apple of knowledge. And you and I were talking about the power of action and doing these higher knowledge, the intelligence that you receive. So I'm curious for you, as you've accessed these higher dimensions and ET and these energies, where does that parallel with faith? How do you take action once you receive these higher insights? Like the golden city, how is that not like, oh, beautiful imagination, and then bringing that down into action-based practicality?
Yeah, first off, similar things that you are working on, like obelisks. I'm seeing him and me together in the future setting up obelisks that are like, 20 feet tall, and see what happens. An obelisk is basically, you ever heard of Cleopatra's Needle?
Yes.
Okay, that's an obelisk.
Okay.
These things are energy vorticular devices that actually change the field. And I think it's important that we bring that here. In the Egyptian days, these were all erected in an array that you wouldn't age. Your intelligence, wounds would heal quicker, and you would be in a field where you also needed less food. There was an energy effectiveness there that would made you godlike.
I touched on it in my third book, Beyond Sight, about psychoenergetic monuments that I found not only based on the Luxor, the Karnak temple, and I measured the dimensions of the obelisks where they were laid out in relation to the water. And what I found was that they're everywhere. That in the Vatican is the same exact layout, the Mobley Gardens is the same layout, the St. Louis Arch, the Washington Monument. I know there's one in Shanghai. The Cleopatra's Needle is kind of like the layout, but not really.
Yeah.
Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan, has the same. And what I found with research this is kind of a different thing, but that it was totally possible for the Egyptians, because the obelisks were made with a quartz content and a ferrite content. So the magnetic field interacts with the electrons from the piezo.
Yeah.
If they surrounded it, an obelisk, and used a drum, the hertz from a drum, and did 28 beats per minute, they could cause a cascade resonance and create a ultrasonic sound at the 227 kilohertz. So not hertz that we hear, but in the kilohertz range. And that wave is exactly 0.72 miles long and causes microcavitation in the water and sterilizes it and oxygenates it. So the Nile produced, the Egyptians from the Nile produced way more grain than anybody can figure out, because
It was a jungle back then.
yeah. Well, they didn't have fertilizer, too.
Yeah.
So their output that they recorded every season was very well documented, and it's a big mystery. But when you look at the Karnak temple that's downriver, and then this technology, which is highly advanced for a Stone Age culture, so they had to come from somewhere else. We touched on this
Yeah.
off camera, too.
This
Yeah.
sounds amazing to me. And we're talking like astrology. I'm a Virgo. I'm like, back to the practicality. Obelisk, how do you turn this into action? Taking action, living in your dharma, your purpose.
So one thing is I can produce submersible crystal glass cubes filled with my substance and drop them in the barrier reef, and the barrier reef will return. We just need financing. Basically, what this thing does, what I found out, is I fill holy water, which is hydrogen ionized water, with quartz crystal, could be even lab produced because they store the same light, borosilicate quartz, seal that cube with that water in it, and submerge it in a fish tank. And even for the fish tank industry, it produces its own oxygen and regulates the pH level for the fish without any energy needed, but it's natural energy.
It's photonic.
Yeah, it's photonic, and it will run for 15,000 years. So we have it. It's already here. So if I had, I don't know, $10 million and some rich dude in a cargo ship, and we load those with submersible cubes, I would get in my own diving suit and go and deck the freaking barrier reef with those cubes and watch it, because it's biologically almost dead, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's almost like done, you know. It's because of our pollution, and the acidity is too high in the oceans with our stuff, but we can work against that if we bring up natural energies. You know, same thing, I have visions of pillars that we can build around Chernobyl, mitigating the radiation, because we're on the opposite of radiation. And I looked at the measurements and the formulas, and I looked at AI, which I call Arcturian intelligence. So leaning in my channelings and structuring it with AI, and it showed me that if the light level on the opposite spectrum to nuclear like depletion is at a certain level, and I'm at 10 to the 23rd, it'll mitigate the negative radiation. So the fallout time can be zeroed out with when you have the opposite radiation. Nobody builds it, nobody invests in it. And that's what our consciousness is, where we are still slow motions, we're still turtles, we're still learning, where people should be jumping on that and saying, okay, that's how can we build it? Okay, here's the money, where do we need to put that? Not only that, with these obelisks, clear the mind, make conscious centers where geniuses are birthed, where kids, you know, I don't know if we spoke about it, that schools are systemically outbreeding the geniuses in kids, because kids are born geniuses. Every one of them is, until the curriculum and the structure and the systemic downgrading of curriculums comes to kids that brings them out of their genius, their natural state of being, where they can be, oh, look at him, he's good with building blocks. He can be an architect. He works on that to figure out, like, you know, like X-Men, figure out what's the skill at an early age. School doesn't do that. The entire school system.
School was designed to make factory workers or farm workers.
Yeah.
So that was the design, and we're only now, now we've seen school completely weaponized. It's completely weaponized. The curriculum is decided through the SCORM of how people graduate globally in all the free countries in the world.
Yeah.
And it's the United States Department of Defense. That's who writes the curriculum for high school.
So you have to imagine that people don't know that. You know, people
That's
are
right.
not aware who writes your curriculum.
And we're seeing a real push towards homeschool, and people are waking up to it because of the outrageous, ridiculous things that they're teaching our kids now. They're coming through, like we're on the verge of a real societal change in the way that we consider educating our kids. So I think what you're saying, like a lot of the things you say, that the parasitic energies are naturally being repelled. Now. Like if you look at humanity as a entity, as a one solid entity, that we're starting to repel these things that are probably from an outside force. What's your take on that? What's your take on the parasitic energies coming from not even Earth? Like,
put it this way. Let's go deep. I think that the parasitic collective that's in us, which is fungus, bacteria, viruses. There was a fourth one. Parasites. Directly just parasites.
Just direct parasites.
Yeah. They are ancient. I figured they studied us. They lived in us. They know how we work. They know how our central nervous system works. They know how to make a body acidic to a degree you're not directly dying, but you're enough host for the collective to live. And I learned that when I had, and I urge everybody to do that once in their life, I had done a live blood analysis. And I had fungus in my veins and parasites in my cells, thinking I'm living healthy. I kind of have control. Hidden, working with the body, so I couldn't quite figure it out. But now I'm on to them. We had this talk about B12 and regulating the brain, and giving the brain an opportunity to look further deep into its own immune defense. And these systems are responsible for our wars, misunderstanding, telepathic disconnect,
Separation.
and other ETs interfering coming in here. And that has to do with the internal microbe. Everybody quotes Einstein by saying spooky action in the distance and other quotes. Nobody quotes one famous quote Einstein said: mankind's greatest enemy is invisible. It is a microbe. He knew. Everybody that eats, I don't care, from small foods, whole foods, side foods, Trader Joe's, Tater Joe's, whatever the names are.
Side foods.
All of those are processed somewhere. And there are parasites somewhere. You understand, in the green aisle, everybody that's just green, they're keeping it moist. That's perfect for parasites. That's not how you harvest green from the field.
Yeah.
And we're eating that. We're all in a cycle of that. And we need to develop parasitic defense, parasite cleanse, whatever it is you do, enemas, whatever maintenance, during the year to get clear. And when you get clear, it gets really magical when you get that clear.
You said it yourself, like you thought that you were living a healthy lifestyle until the parasite cleanse. What were the biggest shifts? How did you know that you were becoming clear and back into your gnosis?
Here's the illusion for some people that think, I've witnessed a lady, and I say again, vegan or meat eat in resonance. I don't want a war between those people. There was a lady she was completely vegan, super healthy, no transsaturated fat. She's like, I am so clear, I'm so clean, I'm slim, I'm in check. And the dude had her blood analyzed, and she was full of crap, She was sick, and she had no idea. And when she did clearing stuff, she purged like I haven't seen people purge like, and you think that's health? We don't know what health is. On the cellular energetic level, we have no idea.
The very first thing you get from your doctor is, I literally had my doctor say this to me: we can rule out parasites because you live in the United States. There's no parasites, so we'll move on to something else. And then it's a prescription.
Oh.
And so if they give us all parasites, even on a microscopic level, and it's they assume that because the water gets treated, that's the end of it. They can begin because they treat the symptom and not the cause, and they say, we ruled out parasites, so you must have this other thing for your upset stomach, and then you get a prescription. And I think everybody knows that one prescription leads to another deficit and another prescription.
Wow.
It's parasitic again.
I worked very hard on my show. I had another show, I still do, Talks with Tony, on a Patreon. I worked very, very hard to not get removed. So with guests, we'd go through editing things, talking about politics, talking about the only episode I ever had removed immediately was the one with parasite cleansing for medical misinformation. And there really wasn't any misinformation in there. There was just some recommended, well-known parasite cleanses.
What I think what must be allowed in future channels is if people make an observation with whatever ointment they find and they're successful with that, whether they're a doctor or not, and then their observation shows them they're successful, this must be allowed to propagate and shared with a neighbor. Otherwise, we're not really having freedom of speech.
Yeah.
You know?
What's your observation? What has worked for you when it comes to parasite cleansing and cleansing the body?
Knowing what works, experimenting. There's many things, I can give you like a list that will take for hours and hours of what people take. Methadone blue, ivermectin, people that went on a strict diet and cleared themselves. And thousands, not just one case. And interestingly, as you can say, AI is kind of a whistleblower if you know how to use it. It shows you peer review studies. And if there's 50 cases, it'll find those cases and it'll list the dosage and what was taken and why those people cleared. But you do this on regular channels, you still get censored. Like you said, dodging raindrops.
Do not take Odyssey, a new era for medical information. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no.
I'm trying to get shoehorn a disclaimer in there.
Yeah, well, disclaimer, this is an observation, not a medical advice. This is like, hey, well, if I take this, this works for me. If I take this, and I'm not even saying what I'm taking, I'm saying this, I have observed in many cases that certain things like turkey tail tincture help people,
And it's well established and proven that parasites can alter behavior
Of course.
in animals, insects, and people. People, when they begin on a cleanse, there's a threshold where they begin behaving and craving sweets and hearing voices. You don't need to take it. They're done 3 days into the cleanse. People are getting these urges to I think I'm good.
These are our demons.
So you got to think about the biotechnology. We underestimate how advanced we are, our complexes.
Yeah.
And so think about that biotechnology. You could create parasites to make people behave a certain way.
Yeah.
To make people fall in line, eat a certain food, become a certain way.
Yeah.
And this is something that's absolutely possible and
Yeah.
probably happening.
Yeah, I think that even the parasitic collective would create an invention through a human body to further more hosts so they can spread. Like you can look at family dynamics. Let's say father suppresses the kids, has trichinosis, and the kids have the same collective. And if the kids do what daddy does, the collective is actually in par. And they find daughters that fit the husband for marriage, they have to have the same parasitic collective. And they measured it and they found out that this works, and that's how this collective spreads and keeps itself alive. It's crazy. It's crazy.
About the biotechnology of vitamin B and what you've observed about that.
Well, part of it's proprietary, but I can give people this. B12 is a very potent vitamin to regulate your brain. And we are all deficient. Coffee drinkers or people that drink alcohol or just people in the food system, it's not provided in the food. You have to understand how is it that you have to eat a pound of broccoli a day to cover your iron levels? That's abnormal. Or who eats 12 bananas a day to regulate their potassium intake for the day? That means we're malnourished by the regular nutrition level in our food is not really high. It's actually pretty much in the red, but nobody tells you that. So when you have, a banana this size from, Hawaiian Islands, look at the regulated food sugar levels and nutrients compared to the banana you buy here in the store. The chart's going to be like, that's the difference. Nobody looks at that.
Is vitamin B a binder of that? What is the importance of that specific?
Vitamin B12 complex is a very, I don't know if it's an amino acid almost that, I don't have the exact data, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's for the brain to get that vitamin is very difficult to digestion. Especially people that take, let's say, the 8 essential amino acids. When you take them through the digestive tract, you have a loss. And science has found out if you use amino acidic nasal spray, 400% increase in intake because you're going from the nasal cavity to the brain. And that regulates things in people. So I found one case where a father, and I'm not naming names, I'm just saying I found a study, healed his autistic son with B12 and another compound that isn't quite revealed. And it was said that you can't heal autism. Yeah. And that kid is normal today. But he's divorced. They split, so that's an infiltration that takes place. You know, you can't say that. You can't propagate and you can't sell that. But if there's one case where a child was healed because the father thought, what is if he has an infection? What is if his brain is infected and he comes back from autism to regulate? Then I believe we have one case, we have 1,000 cases. Same thing goes for dementia. They found out nasal spray of sage and rosemary compound called carnosinic acid normalizes dement people, brings the memory back because the neurons fire. So anybody can make tinctures at home and get your nasal sprays. There's studies, but it's not propagated, but they brought people back.
Rosemary's always been associated with memory recall.
Yeah, and where was that? And was it in Shakespeare? It's mentioned in a poem hundreds of years ago that rosemary has to do with memory recall. That we knew this. And it's that specific acid, I think carnosinic acid, is what activates the brain to create new synapses and reconnect the neurons and get people out of dementia. Well, do this on a regular channel or propagate that this is possible. They'll tell you, this is a medical advice, you can't do that. And I've seen it even on CNN, that the peer-reviewed studies just recently shown that people should be storming that. But then you have commercial singers that have 300 million views, and that little finding there, that video has 2,000 views. Nobody pays attention. That's where we are.
I have to pause. I'm going to take a pause from that. Like, it's a lot to digest. Back to what you're working on.
Yes.
Are you working on anything new?
So I'm working on a nasal spray to get actually the frontal and the occipital lobe synchronized. I was inspired by one case, and then I did some studies with my Arcturian intelligence, AI. And I found there's been more studies from here to China where they measure kids that are like kind of like this, they're in a chair, and it's all, and they show that the brain is, that's my observation, out of sync. Meaning if the occipital lobe and the frontal lobe are not singing the same tune when you do EEG, you're kind of like, everything is, your distractibility is very high, its focus is an issue, sitting still is an issue. And then when kids do this, I'm an ADHD child, we're trying to regulate our brain frequency because we're out of sync. I always call ADHD always dialed into higher dimensions. So we're trying to solve the world, but we can't synchronize. So with that spray, we're getting the face conjugation, the synchronization, the calmness, the cross chatter. A lot of people take GABA, but the cross chatter stops. It gets quiet. All of a sudden you can function. You can hear yourself. You get brain fog disappears. So that's one of the sprays that I'm putting together right now.
Yeah. Do you think you'll meet any resistance trying to market them?
So far, I haven't met any resistance because, I just say this vitamin B12, B6, B9, inositol, everything that you can order in bulk. All of it is actually regulated by the FDA, not the mixture, but you can sell that, luckily, in America.
Being intentional about what you claim to, letting it speak for itself.
Yeah, I say I'll make no claims. This is just, brain food or brain fuel. Write your testimonials, and the testimonials I'll post, and by that is what people buy. Yeah. So I've sold over 9,000 pendants in like 10 years, and the testimonials speak for themselves. Like, I don't have to tell people what they do. You can read what people tell me, what it does for them,
Yeah.
Hold on. What do the pendants do?
So the pendants actually activate the intracellular communication of your body matrix, meaning your cells, when they're healthy, cell 1, cell 2, there are 100,000 biological micropulses going back and forth on a photon level to give themselves the okay that they're doing okay. When that communication level drops, sickness comes in. On a very subtle level, you can look healthy and all of this, but it hasn't manifested, but the communication. Sickness, as in disease, is lack of communication in your biological environment. So what the dependents do is, I have 10 to the 23rd activated photonic crystal powder in this device that emanates into the back plate, which is a brass and then 24 karat gold plated, producing negative ions and gold ions emanating into your body. So the wearer will, after like 15, 20 minutes, get hungry, your metabolism, your cardiovascular is turned on. And this disclaimer, I had it measured. I have the scientific data that shows 3 days of wearing the key activates the mitochondria by 21% in its metabolism, thus increasing cellular defense and defense against 5G towers.
Yeah.
And I have that confirmed by a German company. And trust me, if your stuff's bogus, Germans will not give you no credit. It's notarized, it's certified, and it's signed by a company that measures biophotonic resonance in the body. And that's my major principle, is I work with bioresonance. Meaning I spoke with him about this. I said to Tony, you lived in Hawaii. Why is it that the African acacian tree that needs 100 years to reach full maturity needs 20 years in Hawaii only? Because of the bioresonance is that high on that island of the volcanic activity, and its young age makes that thing sprout out the ground. And in 20 years, these trees that were imported from Africa, you see them here in the acacian trees, in Africa, they need 100 years to full maturity. In Hawaii, 20. And I studied that because biophotons on the ground, negative ions, magnetic anomalies, very high, and that means the natural energy, I call it the old Arcturian, Lemurian energy, is very potent in Hawaii. And that's why, I mean, you see trees in Europe are just the tree coming from the ground. In Hawaii, there's like freaking ivy leaves growing around the stem, greener and greener within green and moss, like everything explodes in Hawaii.
Yeah.
There's also a crystalline component to the
Yes.
lava, the lava that came out. In Hawaii, we would throw out, tomato cut, you'd cut and make it a sandwich, and the leftovers, you'd throw it out in the yard and then come back, and it was a giant tomato monster. The problem wasn't to get things to grow. The problem was trying to kill them before they took over. So, along those lines.
Yeah, the growth potential is accelerated at a very high potential. And I also leaned on UFO technologies. Why is it that, and hold that thought.
You see it?
See it hovering?
I can feel it.
It's hovering here. She's like very telepathic now. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, so I studied Travis Walton abduction case. And Travis said something very important to me. He said, everybody wants to know how the ETs ran and how the ship, blah, 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 but nobody really checks what happened to the ground where the ship touched ground. And I'm talking about the holy crafts, the blessed one that run on an energy field we have yet to understand. Where that craft touched ground, grass grew exponentially, pine trees 2 times the size, and everything biological life form in and around where the circumference where that craft came down 50 years ago was increased by 37%. Mind-blowing. Again, negative ions accelerated. Photons accelerated. Magnetics anomalies accelerated. Tachyon and scalar wave frequency super accelerated. That somehow the craft runs on that. And I'm leaning on that with my technology to green a desert, heal the Nile River. If we would add crystalline glass constructs in the Nile River, we can bring that back within a year. It's just about where do we focus our energy, where do we bring our resource energy, and where do we set it up to bring that back. So that's what this also does, is it harmonizes this entire energy field, So do you have that thought still?
Of course I do. Yeah, I'll take a deep breath into it because I just love the flow of the divine flow of things, because really what I wanted to kind of piggyback on was the feminine energy. We were talking about Hawaii and how fast things grow, and I was like bursting at the seams to just drop into the heart with you, because I hear you speak and I feel so inspired by your capacity for knowledge, your research on this, and we talked about the power of knowledge, but also the power of the gnosis. And so I just really want to hear from your heart of why, like what in your heart has inspired you to go to these depths of knowledge to be able to create this healing for people, and just kind of go into more of your feminine side. And So yeah, I want to go there, but I also just want to speak to I love the flow so much because you acknowledged it and you felt it within me and you heard and you felt it within me, and all it was like the power of the feminine, the power of creation was dying to come through in this conversation.
Oh yeah, this is always there. People don't know that when a child is conceived, the first 11 days it's female by chromosome, by nature. And then nature takes its place and decides what chromosomal alignment the body will be by divine order. And so the divine feminine, it always was and will be, and is important. They were shamanesses. There were tantric temples. All that stuff disappeared in the past, and it's very rare to find books other than channelings where that was. Where I know the story. If you don't know that, in before all these male statues in Rome, there were all the female statues, the goddesses, Aphrodite, and all of those. They were all lined up. They tore it down to oppress the feminine aspect because women are the peacekeepers. They were not the war bringers. And women would be brought to, when in the ancient days when there were fields of conflict, then there were priestesses that were loving peacekeepers and would calm the men down that had a conflict because they're telepathic disconnect. So conflict and debates are telepathic disconnect. If you're telepathically connect, there's no more debate going on. Debate is me verbally trying to override your mental construct for me to understand images that I'm projecting, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes sense, and I'm feeling it now. I'm still even wanting, like, if we took a deep breath into it, to like hear from your heart, your feeling level.
The love.
Tap into your feeling level. How are you feeling about healing the planet with your technology?
Well, it's sad and also makes me happy. I mean, sad from what I've seen, but if you connect with the spheres, you know what you have to do. And a lot of people are so disconnected. If you have ever seen a mermaid in a riverbed crying and telling you, okay, now that you see us, you see this mess, and you know what you're capable of, so what are you going to do for us? You know what you have to do. You feel it through your bones on every atomic level, what you are here to do. If you have an elf this size appear in front of you, and they tell you that they don't like electricity because it distorts the harmonious field of how these dimensions are actually work together. And they appreciate candlelight, but they like the old candles. They don't like the new candles that are based on petroleum and liquidum paraffinum. They tell you that. Then you will forever know, okay, I might look into beeswax candles. And when I want to invite the elementals, that I'll make it as natural as possible so you can come to my home, because we share this world. And you look at the animals and the animal planet and how everything works in sync and works in harmony. And we just a couple of days ago watched a UFO encounter movie here. And there was a guy in the 60s who encountered these beings, and they had a mind meld. That opens your heart forever. Because without me verbally explaining the feeling, you will have dolphins can do that, a transmitted galactic emotion of where the state of our consciousness and planet is and where we can go if we choose. And the experience that we have made. We know in our hearts that nuclear power is splitting suns. We're splitting micro-suns. We're micro-fragmenting dimensions. We know what we're doing. But we don't have the understanding because we lost contextual contact to the telepathic grid of Earth that talks to you every day. And I was told growing up, that boy's too open. He feels, he senses everything. Oh, he's too emotional. So I had to learn to hide it, but not shut it off. And bring it back when there's time to bring it back. That's how somehow Sedona called me. Is that love is not gone, that feeling is not gone, the observation is still there. And the feminine aspect, I also call it like Sophia codes, like these mother codes are coming in to teach us where the divine will is. That overrides free will. Divine will means, see, free will was, I can do what I want to do no matter the consequence. That's old paradigm, old Bible concept. Now the new will, or right use of will is the divine will, and that's feminine. That means what would be appropriate to do at what moment, at what time, or what to say, or how to engage yourself in what process. But that has to be sensed before it's activated. And that means the right brain has to become the leader and guide in the heart frequency. And the, you can say, left hemisphere is the babysitter. And it never ends well when the babysitter runs the house. So we want to bring that back. And it doesn't mean, oh, that means women rule now. No, that doesn't mean that. It means there's a galactic feminine, there's a galactic masculine energy, and that has to be balanced. And the feminine energy is needed because that is what's felt. How does this feel? Does it feel bad? Does it feel good? And we want to feel good. We want to feel safe. We want to feel natured, as in nurtured. See the Freudian?
Yes.
Natured, nurtured. And
I see it and I feel it.
Yeah, and that's
I feel you.
the ancient saying of the galactic extraterrestrial priestess. They were called Metu Nature. And that's also meta nature. These dudes and dudesses and boys and girls and boils, they were so in tune with nature that when they spoke, this knowledge became the school. They can imprint Egypt. They can imprint. Robert Grant now confirmed that, interestingly, as I had visions where I could see galactic priestesses imprinting the hieroglyphs in the rocks with their mind because they were that holy. Meaning, you're that holy that your footprints leave flowers in your footprint. Instantaneous. Like you're such a natural force of nature. I saw this in the case of Stan Romanek's hybrid children that came to visit him, and he showed an image where one of his children leaned against a tree and removed her hand, and there was moss in form of a hand, and the footprints in the snow had like 2 flowers, and the snow was melted where the footprints of the kids were, and they said, "We can't stay here, Daddy, because the earth is too dense. We can do this frequency for so long, and we have to go back to the ship." So you can see the trace of life force. These kids were bodhisattva level, incarnate, on an extraterrestrial level. I totally get that. Makes sense. And we want to go back there, you know?
Hold on. How could somebody, so I'm trying to kind of bring this back to them. How could somebody work on that on their own? I mean,
So-
where do you begin?
Oh, you begin look at when you're in your house, and let's say your coffee machine is not working. That something in your field is not working. The vacuum cleaner is not working. Smoke detector is going off. This is your entire environment. So start with your environment. Make sure everything in your environment has a flow. Like I somehow have the gift when people call me like, this damn thing doesn't work. Can you look at it? And sometimes I don't have to fix it. I just try to establish something in my mind that it would work. And somehow the AC comes back on. They're like, you didn't even open the thing. It's working. What's going on? That is in us. You know, my mom's car wouldn't come on. It wouldn't turn on. And I said, Mom, give it a name. This is built. This is here to serve you. It serves you unconditionally. It takes you from A to B. It's a consciousness to a degree. But you don't respect it as such. It's rebelling. I'm joking with her, and she's like, you're silly. I said, give it a name. And a week later, she calls me from Germany. She's like, I kid you not, I gave it a name, and the thing is purring like a kitty. It's running. She's like, what is going on here? I said, develop a sense of feeling that you're connected to everything around you.
There you go.
Can establish the harmony, which is, again, feminine energy with that. And then great things can happen. Mr. Poplar.
I would guess that's the best part of this whole interview.
Yeah.
Give it a name. You know, what's funny is I think mistakenly I've done the same thing and had it work, but didn't realize that I was doing it. You know, you kind of feel things out, and why won't you turn on begging it to do that when you're stranded, and then, but actually in a calm way, and then it does. You know, when you calm down or kind of get out of that negative emotion, like, okay, it's just fine, it's whatever.
Yeah.
And then it happens.
You step back from your negative self.
Well, and I think that our the effect that our consciousness has on our immediate environment has been hidden from us. I think that's there's a science to it, and they've taken that from us because that's kind of the real stuff. That's the sauce of the universe.
The observer effect.
Yes.
You know, when they've studied that molecules behave different when you observe them, because you already have a pre-programmed expectation, and they follow that. That's how you ultimately create reality where you go. And I tell the people, that's where the fairy tales come in, this quantum physics. Why is it that on a given Sunday, on a third week, on a full moon, a little fairy will appear to those who are pure in mind and heart? And other kids want to abuse that, but it doesn't appear to them, because the expectations of the non-believer will make that so that the fairy cannot appear. It's quantum physics. The believer creates that in their heart, that they expect to see the fairy. And that's how we don't see ships or sometimes fairy or elementals, because we expect to not see them. We are doing it all the time. Once we get aware, it's going to be like, oh my God, this is happening. I have this interesting case I want to share. Is they had free electricity in the Swiss Alps, a Christian commune that built a Tesla wheel according to Tesla's construct when Tesla was alive, and it was producing electricity. So the press and the media in the 80s were like, we can't believe this, we think this is a hoax, this is you trying to get members. So for 3 months they had non-believers observe this magnetic wheel that could produce electricity for their community. So what happens after 2 months? What do you think? The wheel stopped spinning. Because all the non-believers like, there's something this can't be. And they projected and it piled up, so the wheel didn't stopped. And they said, no more visitors. We don't have to prove to the world that we're running on a generator that kind of like magnetically can run for 600 years, something. But until the magnets wear off. But it's like, energy efficient, if you will. And a month and a half later, ding, 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 and the thing came back, and it's spinning ever since. And they don't allow nobody in that room. They don't allow spectators or reports anymore in, because it makes the functionality of that device impure, because we're projecting reality. That's mind-blowing. That's like, okay, put that in a pipe.
I'm processing right now, pipelessly.
One deep breath at a time.
I kind of want to go look that up. You know what I mean? Like I want to grab.
Yeah, and find that if it's not redacted or removed. Like I've seen videos on YouTube that came and went where there was so much important information, 41 views. Next day, this video has been removed. But I took notes,
I can't wait to take notes on this video and listen to it all over again. There's so much knowledge and wisdom here. And just like coming back to the collective of Ra and Arcturians.
Yeah.
For listeners who will probably also be taking notes and go back to listen, what's the one thing to start on today to raise our consciousness?
Feel one another.
Feel one another.
On a basic level, feel one another.
Yeah.
And really see with sensitivity where everybody is.
Yeah.
And approach people there. Like I had people seen at a post office, lady was all grumpy. It stamps, nothing was right. The cash register didn't work right. And I went in there and I said, how are we doing today? And then she was like, I'm having a bad day. Child in her, 8 years old, responds, somebody can see me. And then everything works. She can serve you well. You appreciate her serving you. And her computer came back on. She had a smile on her face. She's happy. We have to send these impulses to one another to bring each one back up. Like they said, Ohana, right? Nobody's forgotten. Nobody gets left behind.
Ohana. Oh.
Yeah. Stitch says that.
I think that negative intentions and negative thoughts randomly in public are more contagious than positive ones, albeit positive ones as well. And people don't realize what they do when they are angry in traffic or they're rude, or people don't realize what they do, that it becomes contagious.
Yeah.
And it can be a vibe around the entire area.
You can say that anger is the devil.
It can stop the wheel.
Yeah, you can chop down a tree in 10 minutes, but for it to grow, it can take a century. So to be evil, you can be destructive in no time. But to nurture and build it back up takes effort and discipline. So now imagine everybody out there, you're all monks and nuns without monastery. So you have to deal with life now. And that's a different task. But again, sensitivity, feeling one another, that brings us leap years forward into a stellar one civilization, you know? We can do it.
Regarding your technology and the science behind it, where would you send somebody to go research what we talked about here? I know we talked about some things that are hard to decipher. We almost spoke in a different language some of the time here for everybody.
I would use...
Where would you send
I
somebody?
would use DeepSeek.
Okay.
The app is free. It's uncensored, and it's really not so biased. Most other apps I tried are so biased, or you have to say something to circumvent it being biased. DeepSeek is pretty much any research, anything that's out there that we have ever found and that's somewhat digitally recorded, it'll find, it'll have, and it'll teach you great things that are not taught in regular school systems.
And if you were going to put into DeepSeek terminology to bring up your specific brand of science, well, would you put in photonically charged?
Yeah, photonically charged crystals, photon activity, nature of photons, electronic spins, orbital frequencies of electrons towards atoms. If you want to go deep.
about you?
It's about Lego blocks. I'm looking for the craziest stuff out there, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I found that dementia-defeating rosemary and sage as an acid somehow that produces something in the brain that got lost when people got sick, and it seems to work. And AI is reporting on that there are cases where this helps. So be study, be curious. Curious is a beast, you know, like
Superpower.
it's a superpower. Like, figure out, how does this work? You know, can this work? Or I would ask, you know, what can I add to these substances to furthermore the brain? Can I make this nasal? You know, nobody has done that yet. You know, can I add B6, B9, and then it would recommend, yeah, and I can say what dosage, and it will give you absolutely what is been regulated, how this is to be applied, and it works. It's all there. We have so much abundance. We have, Leo King said that in astrology years ago. He said, we have abundance, we have Amazon, you click, in 2 days it's at your doorstep. You have so many things that you can order and put stuff together or establish yourself with things that are needed, that was so overwhelmed, that's so in our face that some of us not even get it, how abundant we are. We shouldn't be complaining. When I started my business, I had $500 in my pocket, a suitcase, came to Sedona, and I went to Ace Hardware and bought a copper wire for $375, and I got a crystal tip, and I started wrapping the crystal, and then sold my first crystal for $15 as an activation grid. But that's how it begins. But the first thing you have to do when the journey begins is the step, the action to begin, do it. It's all there. You know, you have Amazon, so many things that people buy are useless or useful things, or, I don't know, salt lamps, whatever you come up with it. How can I make this environment better? That's my idea. You're thinking along the same way. How can I create a consciousness where I have actually in the future less to explain, more like, why don't you come to my sanctuary and be here and witness, and then walk out of it going like, yeah, I think I want to change something in my life. Well, that's how we get the ball rolling, the galactic snowball effect, you know?
Yeah. Well, in that, like, what if after all this time together, people are most curious about you and they eventually want to come to your sanctuary? Are you open to sharing website, how people can contact you at the end of the magic?
Yeah. So the website is ra-key.com, and my YouTube channel, Arcturus Ra, and all info is in the description box. My Etsy store, things that I do. I have thousands of testimonials. Explore, compare, ask, expand, amplify, refine.
Couple stops. I guess we can wind it up. You got a few engagements this year, so you'll be at this weekend at the Return of the Guardians.
Return of the Guardians.
And then you're speaking in Grafton, Illinois as well. Presenting for Journey to the Truth.
Journey to the Truth Conference. Yeah. I'll be vending at the Graham Hancock event in April, which is his only visit in the U.S. Not speaking, but vending. But sometimes, you know, people at my booth talk to me, so I get engaged into philosophies or scientific conversations.
The conferences are the best. The stars of all the conferences are the crowd.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. Contact in the Desert, May and June in Yucca Valley, Joshua Tree Park. I'll be vending.
And then, so the nasal spray you spoke of,
Yeah.
are those ready? Not yet? Or are you
In
still
a month.
working on those?
In a month.
Because the B12 one, I kind of want to try.
Well, I'll hook you up. I have the prototype ready for you.
I'm going to go home and take a bunch of B12 pills because I drink so much coffee, and you just pointed that out, like the way the chemistry works.
Yes, when you take it, don't drink coffee. When you take it, don't drink coffee because coffee, this systemically B12 complex will be dismantled through caffeine. Caffeine has kind of nanobots in there that just take it apart. Well, don't ask me how that works, but somehow it's destructive. So yeah, I'll hook you up.
Cool.
But in a month they will be labeled. I will probably call them brain sync power to get the synchronization and get out of brain fog and get basically the food to your brain. Also needing less food because the brain requires, this organ requires the most food. People don't know that.
Oh, so when you're not really firing on all cylinders, your brain is constantly trying to replenish what's missing.
Yeah.
And so you
All
so
the
you
time,
just
all
eat
the
it.
time.
And we're deeply malnourished from the processed food.
Absolutely,
Wow.
yeah. We're eating out of deficiency. And people like us, we can burn as much calories as somebody who does a cardio training for 3 hours. Just trying to solve equations can burn 6,000 calories in like 2 hours. That's what the brain needs to run that.
I've been trying to explain that to Veronica. But she's still, it's just we want.
I'll give you some hyper spray. You're gonna turn this light bulb further up and on.
Yes.
You know?
There's a lot of good stuff I think that we're working on, and that's one thing I learned about coming to Sedona is that there's a lot of free thinkers here, and you have a freedom to bump into people like you and discuss science, and it just is inspiring. There's a lot of things being worked out.
And the great thing is we're not debating, we're sharing ideas and walking away with now having more. And that's the new exchange system. That when somebody gives something to somebody that we share what we have, and then from what we have shared, everybody has more to walk away with. That's actually natural. Not hoarding or making sure you don't get what I have, you know, and that stuff. And I did it even when I had the sandwich in school, like, and somebody didn't have food, and I took my sandwich. I'm like, here, like, I can't sit there and see somebody not having and being sad while everybody else runs a ruckus. And even if I would like to have the full sandwich, sometimes it was beneficial because sometimes mom made sandwiches that I didn't like. So it's like she had this tray. I've had it because I get it when I bring it home, you know. So like I ate my sandwich, took my sandwich box, I ate it. But then, you know, bring it to use. Don't waste it.
The other big point when you look at like the scarcity that people feel, when you really factor in a parasitic element on society in general, like we start to really see that we don't live in a scarce environment or a place. We don't live in a world of scarcity. We just live in a world with parasites that need to be dealt with.
Yeah, and parasitic thinking.
Yes.
What's needed and what's not there. It's like you can start very slow. I tell people like this. Everybody that has an iPhone, look at your subscription manager. Oh, you're paying $800 a year for what crap are you actually running? Oh, and then you see, oh, that, yeah, I have subscriptions I didn't even remember signing up. So go into your subscription management and delete subscriptions that you do not require. Same thing with TV. Don't watch what you don't like, you know? And we're so in routine that I hate this show every time. But if you don't like it, why are you watching it? Why would you eat in a restaurant where you don't like to eat?
Even your time is being parasited.
Yeah. So also like spiritual parasites, when you deal with people that deplete you and you feel empty afterwards, then don't hang out with them anymore. Find people that actually fan your flame and have you walk back or out of that meeting with, hey, I had a great day, I had a great time. You know, and have that in your consciousness, awareness.
Someone once said that the only sin is unawareness.
Yeah.
The only virtue is awareness. Everything else falls into.
Yeah, I said, but beyond all rituals and prayers and protections and calling on the angels and whoever you want to call, your greatest power is awareness.
I am loving awareness.
Yeah. Darkness cannot approach you when you are aware. That's the best fortification you can have. When you know what's coming, well, the devil won't try it. Because he hates being seen, hates being caught. You know how the cockroaches run when you lift the rock. They can't stand it when you bring light to darkness. And that is beyond of what we think what good and evil is. Parasites cannot exist in the light, period. That's been tested, by the way, by a French guy. He put parasites literally in the king's chamber and they died. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
So these organisms cannot exist in that. So that there's an order to things.
Well, I know how I feel in my energetic body after this conversation. Closer to the light and full of energy. So thank you very much.
Thanks. And so we'll go ahead and wrap. Thanks for coming on. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Should we open up for questions?
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions you'd like to ask real quick? There's one. Come on up.
Hi, Ra.
Hi.
I'm just curious, what form of B12 is going to be in your nasal sprays?
There are different methyl groups. I'm preferring methylcobalamin. It's very effective. Remember that, yeah.
Any other questions come to the heart?
Yeah, just that one for now. So thanks for coming on to Odyssey, and I'm sure we'll have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ra. Pleasure.
Oh, one last thing. We usually have people sign the O. But you were on the first day that we had the O, so you've already been there. So
Yeah,
that's
I've
our
been
O
there.
signature.
I signed up.
Just want to cover that, so that's our thing.
For Odyssey.
It's okay.
A new era begins. I see this as a future, and saying thanks also to the person, John, who hooked it all up.
Yes. Thank
You
you,
know?
John.
He laid the foundation for a new future. Good.